Hi, and welcome to Newsmakers. On each show, we sit down with a Santa Barbara leader who's wrestling with some of the toughest issues facing our community to talk about their jobs and their decisions, and to invite them to share their deepest and darkest secrets, with the promise we won't tell anybody. I'm your host, Jerry Roberts, and our special guest tonight is Salud Carbajal, County Supervisor and front-runner in the race to replace retiring House Representative Lois Capps. Joining in the conversation is Josh Molina, who writes about politics for Newshawk. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Start out with a little bit of bio. You were born in Mexico. Your dad was a bracero, so when you came to this country, you were 5. Went to Arizona, moved to Oxnard later. Public schools, UCSB, Fielding Institute for an MA. Worked for the late Supervisor Naomi Schwartz and elected to the Board of Supervisors 2004, 2008, 2012, and now running for Congress. That pretty much sums it up, huh?
Yeah.
So you're one of 8 children, and when you were 7 or 8, there was a family tragedy, very traumatic experience that was also, I think, formative for you. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it was early in the morning. My father had just gone to work. My mother wasn't at home, and my older sister obviously must had been going through a bout of depression, and she got my father's gun and shot herself. She committed suicide, and I was the one who found her in the living room, and it was very traumatic.
What was that? What was that like in terms of how you went forward and how the family got through that, and particularly what role you played? You were the youngest kid, right?
Well, it was quite a shock confronting that situation. I recall running across the street to the neighbors and just being hysterical. How I dealt with it, I think I eventually was taken to a counselor and to try to talk about the incident. I think I went once or twice and didn't want to go back. I just, for some reason, didn't want to continue the sessions. I remember going for about 2 times and just working it out on my own and with my family in terms of my own trauma.
And then, as a family tried to heal, though, what role did you play in that?
You know, it's somewhat fuzzy in terms of what role I played, other than just working through the crisis. It's hard to recollect in a way that I could tell you what happened or didn't happen. I just recall the family coming together a lot tighter and kind of working from a very tragic situation.
I'm not trying to be an armchair psychologist here, but your whole political style is collaboration, compromise, let's all work things out together. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is that it was just that kind of formative experience. Do you feel that influenced kind of the way that you interact on a professional level with people and on a personal level as well?
I would say so. I would say it made me come to terms with my own mortality, and I think eventually understand that what we as human beings are made of, and maybe understanding that life is very precious.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't know that story. Imagine it's really tough for you. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening right now with the congressional race. You seem right now as though you're doing pretty well. You've got a lot of money. You've at the most money. You're far outpacing your rival in the race. What do you think right now is separating you from Helene Schneider, the other Democrat in the race? What do you think the difference is in people's minds right now?
I'm just focusing on me and what we need to do in terms of being successful with this campaign. I'm going throughout the district, talking and meeting with as many people and groups as I can, and really just hearing about the issues that are important to them and sharing a little bit about my service to date and my vision to represent the Central Coast, and just listening to what's important to them.
And you're raising a lot of money doing it, though. What do you got? You raised $1 million so far, or you have $1 million in the bank? What is it?
Well, I'm very proud of the broad support that I've been able to achieve on this journey. I like to think that it's a reflection of people knowing of my service, bringing people together, being effective, finding solutions that matter to the many challenges that confront the residents of the 1st District. And I think them placing their confidence in me that I can, I think, parlay my approach to service representing the Central Coast in Washington.
I wrote a column recently quoting a local political wag who said you've been planning to run for Congress since the 5th grade, and
I thought it was
Josh here thought it was the 3rd grade. How you have been plotting this forever.
I have been focused on doing my work at hand, and I have always taken the approach that you work hard, you do the job at hand, you work hard, be a good listener, be accessible, and have a track record that people can judge you on. And then after that, if opportunities come up, certainly your record will speak for itself.
So when did you first believe that this was, or begin to believe that this was going to be an opportunity for you? When did you first start thinking you wanted to go to Washington? Because a lot of people don't want to go to Washington. I mean,
I think there was speculation that Lois might not run after this last term.
Oh, you were thinking about it before then.
Well, there was many people were approaching me, asking me if I would be interested, encouraging me, but until that decision was made by Lois, it was just speculative. Certainly, it crossed my mind, but in terms of it becoming a real opportunity to pursue, it wasn't until Lois absolutely made her decision.
Let me follow up on as you said, your track record. As we all know, you represent Montecito, wealthy, one of the most affluent, wealthiest places in the country, and you have a very different upbringing. Okay, so you represent some of the most wealthy people in America, and you had the opposite sort of upbringing. What? Let's talk a little bit about what have you done to directly represent people such as yourself. We read a lot about contributions from Rick Caruso, or getting a lot of contributions from people in Montecito. What about the 99%? What are you doing directly? What's a track record to help people such as yourself?
Well, let me tell you something I'm most proud of. During my service, it became evident that Santa Barbara County had the highest rate of uninsured children in the state of California per capita. I worked across the aisle with Supervisor Centeno and my other colleagues to sponsor a health initiative that would provide insurance to many of those children. We went from having 16,000 uninsured children to 1,500 uninsured children. Many of the most neediest in our community. When it comes to our schools, I teamed up with our district attorney, Joyce Dudley, and Supervisor Lavanino and the rest of my colleagues to put forward a great truancy program that is now catching our children that are being truant and really intervening in their lives so that they could get back to school and live up to their potential. I fought for resources for the safety net. I fought for the poverty study that we did to illustrate how bad our working families and families in poverty have it in our county.
That Santa Barbara County is it not doesn't have the greatest wealth disparity in California of counties? It's in the top 3.
No, but it demonstrated significant poverty throughout the county. Significant poverty. It was actually a very good report, and it helped us better deliver our services in county government to those populations that are most in need.
But here's the thing. Everybody knows that the game in Washington is rigged. And it's all about the 1%. And it's all about special interests that are serving the 1% and fixing the tax code and so on and so forth. So you take this enormous issue wealth disparity, of which Santa Barbara County is one of the leading examples in the country. What can you possibly do about that in Washington, about addressing that issue?
Well, for starters, I think we need to look at the minimum wage. The federal minimum wage is $7.25, way below the California minimum wage, which is above $9. The first thing we need to do is raise the minimum wage to really help those in poverty have opportunities to get better paying jobs so that they could pull themselves out of poverty and go into the middle class. And we need to make sure that we are providing broader opportunities so that the middle class could continue to prosper. Anybody who works hard should be able to get ahead. And I think I need to work, I will work on those issues that will help working families on the Central Coast.
But the reality is, to keep your seat, to campaign, most of the way you spend your days is going to have to be raising money. I mean, that's what happens. That's what happens in Washington. And here you are, you're already a prodigious fundraiser, the leading Democrat for an open seat in America, I believe. Which is, I mean, it's great from an organizational perspective as a politician, but it's also kind of a sad commentary, isn't it?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest demoralizing aspects of our democracy, the money in politics, and the fact that the only way one can win is to raise the resources.
Which you're good at.
I'm just grateful that many people in the Central Coast, the 24th District, believe in me and have been supportive of my service and my candidacy. I'm focusing on making sure I'm reaching out and touching base with as many people as possible, and making sure that I listen to the issues that are important to them. I have a volunteer in my office that just yesterday was telling me that he believes that Social Security is going to be cut by 10%. And he was actually telling me how that was going to affect his life. And he was giving me the figure.
Well, that's what the Republican presidential candidates are saying.
Well, he's very scared. And for him, that's a real reality. And he was telling me, knowing that I'm running for Congress, how this will impact his life. And nothing makes a bigger impact than hearing from constituents firsthand and individuals on the Central Coast of what's of concern to them, what do they think the issues are of importance are in our area, and making sure that I understand those.
Well, let's go back to what Josh was talking about Rick Caruso. He's not quite a constituent. He kind of was, but talk about what that case is.
I recently did a story looking at campaign contributions, and you can see right there, there's Rick Caruso, there's other people with last name Caruso.
The owner of the Miramar Hotel.
The developer and owner of the Miramar Hotel. Of course, this has been a long process. The County Board of Supervisors ultimately approved it. You're the credited for sort of brokering this deal for him. For people who sort of don't like that, they say, "Oh, this guy made this happen. He paved the way for this developer to come in to rebuild that hotel." And then we're looking at the campaign donations, and there's money that's a payback. What do you say to people who judge you or look at you and say, "Well, he's going to do everything Caruso says," and they have this cozy relationship?
Well, I have support. Broad support throughout the district. Many people support my candidacy. And I'm focusing on making sure that I listen to all the issues that are important to people on the Central Coast. And certainly, we need to look at the impact of any project and the revenue that will raise so that we could have more teachers, more firefighters, that we have more resources so that we could provide more services, especially for those who are most vulnerable and those in the middle class. So I'm very proud of my service.
Have you ever rejected a donation?
Yes, I have.
For what?
Yes, I have.
What was it?
There was a donor that provided me a contribution during my term on the Board of Supervisors, and I returned that contribution.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Well, just to follow up on Josh's point, though, the appearance is, here's a big developer from L.A. He gets a sweetheart deal where he doesn't have to pay taxes for, 10 years or whatever, and Salud gets a campaign contribution. So, people who just look at that on the natural, the perception of that, what do you say? What do you say to people who say that stinks, that doesn't look right?
Well, I think I received support from a broad number of people, and I think that's all candidates receive that type of support. Certainly, I understand the question you're posing, but it goes back to the broad support that I have from throughout the district. No one individual, I think, has that impact that I think you're getting to. It's an entire group of individuals throughout the Central Coast that are supportive of my candidacy.
Let me ask you this. I've been watching this stuff for a long time, and basically it seems to me there's three kinds of members of the House of Representatives. There's people who are constituent service. That's what they do. They want to take care of their voters. They want to take care of their constituents, people who live in their district. There's people who really want to focus on national issues, say former Congressman Howard Berman or Henry Waxman, or the environment or foreign affairs. And then there's people like your friend, Representative Becerra, who are very involved and focused on the leadership and kind of moving up. Which of the three are you?
I would say I'm the one that's going to focus on the issues that are germane and relevant to the Central Coast.
So constituent.
Constituent, absolutely. It's my primary objective is to represent the residents of the Central Coast and all the issues that are germane and important to the Central Coast. That's my priority. Everything else, Washington is Washington. My priority is representing the district and the issues that are important, such as healthcare, such as climate change, investing in our infrastructure, making sure that we're protecting Medicare and Social Security for our seniors, making sure that we're working on elevating the minimum wage, making sure we're promoting equal pay for equal work for women. All of those issues are important to me. Comprehensive immigration reform.
Right. You're endorsed by Representative Capps, right?
Yes.
And that was a significant deal for you, significant endorsement. What would you say is one difference between you and Representative Capps?
You know, I am very grateful for having the support of Congresswoman Capps. I think and value very much her endorsement, and I'm focusing just on what's important to me. Certainly, I'm my own person, and I'm going to be able to focus on the issues that are important to the Central Coast. And it's really not about comparing me to Congresswoman Capps. It's about the work that I will be doing to represent the Central Coast in Washington.
Go ahead.
So, you know, you're the front runner, got $1 million to do this, but understand when you say things like that, people who are not your supporters, they hear that as you not taking a stand and just and articulating something. They sort of see you as kind of middle of the road. We know you're your own person, right? We know that, we get that. You have very different backgrounds. But is there one policy issue that you think that you'll be different than she was to the residents of the Central Coast?
You know, Josh, I know you're trying to get me to say something about where I would differ with Congresswoman Capps. But
it's not a bad thing.
No, but I think I'm focused on what I need to do and the issues that I think members and residents of the 24th District want me to focus on.
Let me try it this way. The National Journal has a number of studies about members of Congress. Congresswoman Capps is consistently among the top 100 most liberal House members. She's voted with the Democratic Party 94.7% of the time, 42nd in the Congress. Can you name a single issue where you would differ with her?
You know, well, let me tell you something that is important to me. I would make sure that I am supportive of making sure we have fiscal responsibility and making sure that's balanced with all the spending that needs to be done to make sure that all the safety net programs are kept in place, such as Social Security and Medicare. And that's really what I would do. You know, we have a $3.9 trillion budget. $3.5 trillion is the revenue we receive. $1.9 trillion is the discretionary amount of money that the federal government has. 55% of that goes towards the military.
So you're saying she hasn't been fiscally conservative enough?
No, I'm
just
telling you what I would focus on.
All right. 3 times we say uncle. All right, you're not going to answer it. Helene Schneider wants to debate 10 times. You're going to debate 10 times?
Absolutely, we're going to debate.
10 times?
There's no debate about debating. I think we're working out a schedule that will make sense. We're already in communication with KEYT, Charter, and Comcast in North County. And we've actually already met with Mark Danielson at KEYT to discuss a potential schedule. My campaign team are reaching out to all the candidates, and we'll be having a schedule in the near future.
All right, so you're going to, but are you committing to doing the TV Santa Barbara debate?
I am committed to doing debates.
Are you going to do our debate?
If it's one of the many debates that we work out, absolutely.
Well, that's not much.
Since you brought up Mayor Schneider, we know you're ahead fundraising and significantly with endorsement. She had a poll that she released not too long ago that said that she had a better chance of coming out ahead or competing against Republican Cacho. And there was some debate as to, what does that mean? What do you think of Mayor Schneider's time as mayor? Has she been a good mayor, bad mayor? What do you think? How would you assess her performance?
Well, polls are polls. Mm-hmm. They go up, they go down, depending when you implement those polls. Yeah. I'm just focusing on me and my race.
How about her assess his question about assessing her record as mayor?
I think I'll leave that up to you. I think all I can do is share what my track record is, what I've done, and the vision that I've outlined to represent the Central Coast in Washington. And I'm focused on the issues that are important to the Central Coast. Again, climate change, investing in our infrastructure. All of those issues are the issues that I'm focused on. I'll leave that to you to look at the contrasts.
In terms of what's happened here, we have, let's go back in time. You at one time, and Helene Schneider were Democratic allies, right? You worked on the same issues. You were friends. You worked together on some things. And now we have this, some would say, unfortunate divide between two rising star Democrats at one time. How do we get here? How do we get to this point in time where you're going this way and fundraising, she's going in a different direction? What happened? How did you go in your route and she went her route? What would you say?
I think it's healthy. Our democracy is healthy. Mm-hmm. And that's what our democracy allows, for people with different ideas to get into the fray, make a case. I think it's totally appropriate and totally within our democracy to have individuals participating, engaged, and embarking on this journey. I think it's totally appropriate.
Just to go back to the fundraising, just to close the circle on that. So in April, I think, of this year, you paid a fine to the Fair Political Practices Commission for, you didn't, there was some sort of bookkeeping things were late, but there was a $15,000 cashier's check that you took from apparently Mr. McCaw, Craig McCaw. How did that happen? How do you? If somebody gave me a $15,000 check, I would know who it was from. I don't know.
Well, I think contributions are received by your accountant, and they get deposited. And the only thing that was wrong is that it was a cashier's check instead of a different type of format or check. And that should have been caught, should have been weighed, and should have been sent back and said, we need a different form of contribution, not a cashier's check. Who knew that you can't accept cashier's checks? So that was, it was insightful to learn that, and obviously it was wrong. So I'm glad we were able to correct that.
What do you think we should be doing in Syria, since you're going to be focusing more on foreign affairs?
Well, Syria has created a real conundrum for the United States on two fronts. One, ISIS, and two, the humanitarian crisis that has resulted from that. I think we really need to look at what our options are to address ISIS collaboratively with other countries, and to make sure there's a unified approach to addressing ISIS and the atrocities that they are creating. But I think we need to not rush into war hastily. I think if you can't send your own kids, then you can't send somebody else's kids. That's a guiding principle that I will always have in looking at whether we go to war or not, or what kind of approach we take, whether it's boots on the ground or not. In terms of the humanitarian, we need to encourage Europe to do more. It's in their backyard to open up their doors more and to address this humanitarian crisis. I don't think they're doing enough. And then we, as a leader in this world, we also need to look at how we could be part of that solution.
So we should take more.
I think we have the high moral ground, and being an industrialized nation, to lead by example. But I think we first and foremost need to have Europe and the countries surrounding that area open up provide for a solution and accept more refugees.
Do you think we should enter into a partnership with Russia to try to bring about peace in Syria?
Well, we're between a rock and a hard place now that Russia is there. They're sort of wagging the circumstance out there. But we need to make sure that we're in clear communication with Russia and delineating a strategy of all our interests in addressing the issues in Syria. It's a very complicated issue.
What about Afghanistan? Should we leave troops there indefinitely? The president was going to bring them all home. Now he's going to leave them there.
Well, he extended the deadline, I believe. You know, Afghanistan is a very complicated area. I have family members that have done tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. The question is, what is the climate now, and what is the most constructive way to exit Afghanistan? And I think that's the real question. And until I get more information and have access to all those confidential briefings, it's really hard to answer that question.
Real quickly, what about the president's deal with Iran, the nuclear deal?
I am supportive of that deal after looking at all the countries that came together and participated in crafting that deal, and the fact that this is not trust but verify. And at the end of the day, it's a way to make sure Iran doesn't get their hands on a nuclear weapon. That's the ultimate objective. And secondly, it also keeps the United States from having to go to war. So I think this is the best deal that, not perfect, but I think it's the best deal that was put on the table. And I am supportive of the president's deal.
You going to endorse Bernie Sanders for president? You going to endorse a socialist?
You know, Hillary is an exceptional candidate. And I would like to see Hillary break the glass ceiling. I have a daughter who's 30 years old. And I just think Hillary's a great candidate. And it would be great to see her as president.
All right. Well, listen, Salud, we really appreciate you coming and seeing us on Newsmakers. It's only 103 days till the election, so we hope you'll come back once or twice. And we do appreciate you confirming for that TV Santa Barbara debate. And thank you all for watching Newsmakers. Thanks to Josh Molina for joining with us. Thanks to Salud Carbajal. And check us out on Facebook, SB City Desk. And next time our guest will be Helene Schneider. Thanks for watching.